What's up, folks, and welcome to Indie Ramble. So I have got some lovely modern retro goodness for you today of the 16-bit inspired variety. So yes, indeed, this is Vengeful Guardian Moonrider, and it comes to us from Joy Masher and the Arcade Crew, who are the two groups who put together the absolutely fantastic Blazing Chrome from a couple of years back. That was another 16-bit inspired game, and it was very much a Contra-like. In pretty much all the main ways, including the difficulty. That game is ridiculously hard. This one is kind of a bit of a mashup. It's a little bit Contra, it's also a little bit Mega Man, and a little bit Strider, almost. So if you're an old school 16-bit action platformer fan, all of those names probably, you know, did something in your head. And this has been quite interesting. It is similar but different to the other efforts that have come before, like Blazing Chrome, and I quite like it, but it's going to be, you know, it is different for sure, so I wanted to show it off to you guys here. So these are what's called power modules. We're going to talk about those in a minute, so I'll just get going here. So as you can see, very much a 16-bit inspired action platformer. It's got the graphics, it's got the sound, it's got the gameplay for something that could very well have been on the Super Nintendo, and I love it for that. You know, that is very much my jam. And the story behind this is quite simple. You are what's called the Guardian, which is a robot that is normally used by an oppressive regime. They use a bunch of these, an oppressive regime, in order to suppress the people. You basically go rogue, you basically grow a conscience, decide you don't want to do that anymore, and you're going to change the system by wrecking the oppressors. That's pretty much it. So, and as you can see, it is a 16-bit action platformer. So you're going to go through the levels, you're going to take out various different kinds of enemies, and a number of the levels have mid-bosses. Some of them have several mid-bosses, in fact, and then you got a main boss at the end that you're gonna take out. And so that's kind of where the Contra bit comes in. And you can probably see from the little sword attack that I'm leveling here and some of the platforming that I'm doing that there's also a lot of Strider in this as well. Now, where the Mega Man comes in is that after each boss, you will acquire a particular heavy weapon that you can use. Now, I've actually finished the game. I haven't 100%ed it, but I have finished it. So I have them all here. And there's a number of different ones that do various different kinds of attacks of differing levels of power, and some are better suited to some situations than others, not unlike Mega Man, but none of them are required in order to get past any of the levels. So they're very much an optional thing. And much like Blazing Chrome, you can attack all but the ending levels of this in whatever order you want. So you start doing, this is actually the first level of the game, which sort of intros everything. So you got to do this one first, but after that, a map opens up that you saw at the start there, and you can choose to do the levels in whatever order you like. So there probably is an ideal order in terms of getting the best power-ups to go against every boss, but it's not required at all. I just sort of picked a different level as I went, and, you know, off I went and I did my thing. So you definitely have a little bit of freedom there. This is single player only. There is no co-op in it, so that's another thing to keep in mind, which, you know, is also very much like Mega Man. And the way you deal with the enemies is you've got your crazy little cyber sword thing, and you can also do jump attacks like these. Depending on the direction in which you hold down the D-pad and jump down, you can hit enemies like that. And certain kinds of enemies, like these shield guys, you've either got to use a special attack on them, or you have to use those acrobatic abilities in order to ensure that, you know, you get them, you exploit their weak points, in effect. And a lot of the bosses are very good in this regard as well. So you have these different abilities that you can use. As you can see there, you've got your two bars in the upper left corner, which dictate both your health and your special weapon power left. You will occasionally find pickups throughout the levels to recharge those. That's what those little pod things are right there. And that'll allow you to recharge that and have access to more of it. And by holding down, in my case, the right trigger, you can sprint as well. And if you sprint attack into an enemy, you do more damage to them as well. So it can behoove you to rush enemies like that. It can be very helpful in terms of getting through things a little bit more quickly. And that's sort of the core meat of the gameplay. Now, it's pretty straightforward, but as I said, this is very much 16-bit inspired, and it is like that in all the different ways. Aesthetically, gameplay-wise, you know, simple but effective, you know, easy to learn, hard to master, and it can be fairly difficult. Now, Blazing Chrome was notorious for how faithful it was to old-school 16-bit games in the sense that it was vicious. It is incredibly difficult and demands a lot of you. You have to memorize enemy placements, you have to memorize the boss attack patterns, you have to memorize, you know, all of these things. You got to get good, right? This one is no pushover, to be sure, but it is not quite like Blazing Chrome. But it can be. So I'm going to explain that. Another menu that you probably saw there at the beginning, we talked about it a little bit, was the extra power sort of powered chip abilities, if you will. And so what those are is those are special extra abilities and powers that you will find in essentially what are secrets in the levels. So you've got to sort of seek these out and usually go a little bit off the beaten path to find them. Sometimes in later levels in particular, you'll have to do a fairly gnarly platforming challenge in order to get to them. So it's going to, you know, it's demanding. And then when you can equip up to 2 of those at a time. And if you pick up a new one, you have the ability to equip it right away if you so desire. You can only have up to 2 equipped at a time, and they're effectively little assists. So by having them equipped, you can do things like gain the ability to double jump, which again is never required to beat the game, it's just helpful. You can pick up a slow health regen. You can pick up something that reduces your damage, but makes it so that you cannot get max rank in a level. And of course, every level like this grades you at the end, just like that. And you have things like that. You have, well, let's take a look at what we've got here so far. So let's pick a different level. And I'll show you what we've got here. So each level has a little bit of a description, talks about the boss that guards it. So yeah, I haven't unlocked them all yet, but you see you have Acrobat, that gives you the extra double jump. You've got HP regen. You've got this thing which increases the power of your attacks for every enemy you kill without getting hit. You've got Reborn, which gives you a single respawn. The armor one, Glass Cannon, which it specifically says is for hardcore players only, because you die if you take a single hit. So, you know, that's a thing. And there's other ones here, and Detective actually helps give you a little nudge into where the additional power modules are if you're having a hard time finding them. So that's where the game becomes a little easier, because if you turn on those, they're basically little assists that can make things easier for you. But now, some people might be like, you know, especially people who love Blazing Chrome are probably going to go, they made it easier, or they dumbed it down for people who don't want to get good. The thing is, you don't have to use them. You know, it doesn't force them on you, and if you want to play this the hardcore way, you absolutely can. And, you know, the game has hardcore achievements tied to that. It has achievements tied to getting an S rank on every level, and you can't get an S rank if you use, for example, the power-up I have equipped now that allows you to take more damage. You know, there's an achievement in this for beating every boss without taking any damage. Well, it doesn't matter what assists you have on, that still requires you to be pretty damn good at the game, you know what I'm saying? So totally optional, and for those who really want the challenge, you're still going to get it here. You know, they still understood what they were making here, and to be honest, if I were to guess, they put in those power module chips and made them optional, yeah, to try to appeal to a bit more of a wider audience, because Blazing Chrome, the people who really love that game love how hard it is, but it was a turnoff for a lot of people, and I think Blazing Chrome probably didn't sell as well as it could have, because it just pushed away people who weren't into old school difficulty. And this tries to straddle the line, making it possible for people who want that difficulty to have it, while also making things a little bit more accessible for those who just don't have that kind of time to devote to one title. And I'll be honest with you, I don't have a problem with that. You know, there's gonna, I mean, there will be speed runs of this game. There probably are as I'm recording this, even though this game's only been out for a few days. There'll be speed runs of this with no assists on and all of those things out there. So that community is still going to get served, you know? And yeah, I think it's fine to do things that way. I honestly do. And it really doesn't bother me. You're going to see that my rank here on a lot of these levels is pretty crap. If you want to S rank, it's going to be demanding. Like, even if I turn the assists off, it's still tough because you're graded on not only your score, which is something that's hidden until the level is over, but you're graded on how long the level takes, and you know how long it takes you to get through. If you continue, and there are continues in this too, by the way. If you continue, that's it. Like, your rank is donezo, right? So if you want to really max this thing out, it's gonna push you, and there's people out there who want that, and you will still be well served in that regard. So yeah, I mean, overall, I'm a big retro game fan, and I love the, I guess you call it, brutal simplicity of older action platformers like this. You know, I was never that great at these games when I was a kid. I never 100%ed them, or for the most part, or anything like that. But I did love I did enjoy them, and I did love the challenge, and I did love having to get good at stuff. And this really scratches that itch. Like most things the Arcade Crew has put out, though they maybe are trying to grow a bit more broader appeal with this, is this game designed for everyone? Hell no. They wouldn't be making, you know, tributes to platformers from 30 plus years ago if they wanted to make something that was for everyone, you know. And I still love and respect that there are companies out there willing to do this stuff, because there is an audience out there who loves this, and I'm among them. And I'm very grateful to see more of it. I think it looks and sounds great. I think they absolutely nail, you know, the 16-bitedness of it. Joy Masher absolutely knows how to nail that. You know, there's some retro-inspired games where you can clearly see that, though they do have some cool inspirations, at the same time they're taking a lot of modern technical liberties with what they're putting out. Not this. This feels like, you know, taking a game like this and just making it run on a Super Nintendo is not as easy as just pushing the compile for SNES button, but it feels like this is something that they could port over to that system if they wanted to, kind of like the guys at Bitmap Bureau do with games like Xenocrash. You know, it feels like this is something they could have done that way, and I really like developers who, I find it really cool to see devs who have given themselves very tight limitations in which to operate. And where they're like, yeah, we wanted to make this a 16-bit game, but oh, let's just tweak this, or let's take advantage of modern processing power for this, because, you know, it just makes it easy. And that kind of breaks the, I guess you'd say, immersion, retro immersion, if you will. These guys very slavishly stick to their objective with that. They have a vision. They want this game to feel like it could have been played in the 16-bit era, and they handle that extremely well. And yeah, I'm a big fan of that. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, is this game super deep, like to the point where there's a lot to talk about? No, not really. But that's kind of what makes it great. It's not biting off more than it can chew. It's not necessarily trying to reinvent the wheel. It's maybe evolving the wheel and making it a little bit, you know, improving things a little bit. But it's not trying to reinvent what a 16-bit era action platformer is. It's just saying, yeah, here we like these kind of things, and we know what our roots are, and we made something cool. And that's A1 in my books. Joy Masher is a team that's got some real talent, and I love how the Arcade Crew has found a niche serving the audience that's into games like this, and like NES era and other things like that, and they found a way to make a business out of this particular niche. And I'm very happy that there is an audience big enough to support this, because I love this stuff and I want to see more of it. And it makes me very happy that there's room for this these days, because there didn't used to be. Outside of an uber niche that was so small, you could never consider making something like this a commercial success. So, really happy to see that. So, yes, indeed, that is Vengeful Guardian Moonrider. It is out on a whole whack of stuff right now, and I think this is a great time. Especially if you use the assist, it's not going to take you that long to finish it. It took me about 2.5 hours. But if you want to 100% it, if you want to find all the upgrades, and if you especially want to, you know, 100% it, or really, wow, I screwed that up, 100% it, or, you know, really go for the full challenge, you're going to get a lot more out of it than that, without a doubt. It's a fine tribute to the era, made by people who clearly understand the craft and are very adherent to their vision, and I always appreciate that. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. I do appreciate it. Leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think about this. What, you know, are you a fan of what they've done to make things a bit more accessible or not? Did you like Blazing Chrome? What are some other 16-bit era modern platformers that you like? Or indeed, just tell me what your favorite 16-bit era games were like this in general from back in the day. I'd love to know, because there was no shortage of them for sure. And yeah, do all the normal YouTube things, like, subscribe, hit the bell, etc., etc. And you can also follow me over at twitch.tv/pxabstraction for multiple variety live streams a week. I cover other indie stuff as well as retro things over there, including some things better suited to streaming than YouTube. We have a fantastic little community over there, and I'd love to see you be a part of it. Thank you again, everybody, and I'll see you on the next Indie Ramble. You folks have yourselves a good one. Take her easy.